Just a little ripple in our corner of the world. Think about it. If we're all doing it, those ripples are going to eventually merge together and create a wave of kindness that goes across this country. And
Yes.
that's
Yes, it's
what's needed.
true.
That is so needed. That's how we change the world, just one ripple of kindness at a time.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Kingdom Life Women podcast, where we are here to empower other women to make a greater impact in the kingdom of God. And sometimes it doesn't look like ministry, sometimes it just looks like raising our kids. And let's be honest. Well, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes my kid don't act like he should. That's the truth. Now, sometimes he's great, but he's 15. Enough said. Am I right? So,
Yeah,
if you have kids from 2 to 22, they are sassy and mouthy and highly opinionated. Aren't they, Teresa?
well,
Highly opinionated.
absolutely.
Sometimes I just wish they had less of an opinion, but let's face it, it's part of growth. And we all, as moms, want to make not only a greater impact in the kingdom of God, but a greater impact in our family. And so, if we're going to do that with our kids, sometimes we just need some help for real. Like, I feel like
For
I
real.
need some real help right now with this 15-year-old. And so, Teresa does something that we all need. And so, I'm going to let her talk about what she does. So Teresa, welcome to Kingdom Life Women. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Oh, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, as I was thinking about podcast guests, I came across your profile in Facebook and I thought, well, wait a second, raising kind children. I need to know more about this. When my baby son, who is now 15, when he was little, he was the kindest child I had ever met. In fact, if you couldn't find him, he was generally in somebody's lap that we did not know, telling them stories or telling them how much he loved them. And he was always just the sweetest child. And not that he's not sweet now, but I mean, he's 15. And so, he's not as sweet as he used to be, but he's still kind. And so I'm so excited to talk about how we actually can intentionally raise kind children. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody what it is that you do?
Well, I actually went into retirement before I found Journey in Kindness. And I have two grown sons, and I have a dog and a cat who run my life. So that's what keeps me going. I hike with my dog every day. And if I can get my sons, we go kayaking as often as possible.
Now, did you say kayaking?
Kayaking.
Wow, no
Love it.
kidding. And what part of the country do you live in that you
I'm
can
in
kayak?
Cincinnati, Ohio. I do remember that 15, 16-year-old phase, and it's not pretty.
It's rough, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Why? Why do you think they go from being these perfect creatures to suddenly it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
I had, and this is even before they're 15, 16. I had a teacher, one of the teachers, my kids' teachers said, yeah, these kids come in sixth grade, they're wonderful. Then their alter egos come when they go into seventh grade.
Right.
And she said, I don't know what happens over the summer, but they turn into little monsters. And she said, they
It's got to
actually
be
turn into different
hormones,
human
right?
beings.
It's true. Listen, it's true. Between my husband and I, we have four boys, and I will tell you that the teenage years, they are difficult. It's I guess when they're little, you have so much influence over their mind, right?
Right.
And then as they get older, I jokingly said they become very opinionated, but they do. They have their own opinions. They have their own way of doing things. And as a parent, let's be honest, we do like to control the situation because it's
Oh, yeah.
easier. And then as they get older, they will allow you to control the situation less and less as they become, more independent and begin to kind of exert their personality. Would you say?
Yes, absolutely. And they want to exert, they do want to exert that. But I want to do this. And this is what I think. And of course, I think you said it. They're 15 going on 30. And you're just like,
15
okay,
going
so
on
you
30.
just, have to guide them through that. And it is not easy.
It is not easy, and as a mom, it can really make you feel like a loser. I'm just being honest. It can really make you feel like, where is my child, the one I love the most, you know? The hormones are crazy, the peer pressure is crazy.
Mhm.
Now mine is he wants to drive and I'm like, "Son, you can't clean your room. I'm not going to put you behind the wheel of a moving vehicle." Like I just don't feel like this is good sound parenting. On the other hand, you want them to be their own person. I often find myself wondering with him, in the day to day interaction with me. And I know it's always different with your parents, right? Always different with your mom. But in the day to day interaction, sometimes he says crazy things. Like he will say, "Well, I'm not doing that because I don't want to." And I'm like, "No one asked you if you don't want to." But I immediately, as a mom, I think, what if he says this to his first employer? It's a problem. It's a problem,
It's a problem.
and so, when I came across you, I thought, I need this lady's help because maybe she can help me make sense of this. So you have Journey to Kindness out. Talk about that just a little bit.
Journey in kindness, it started out and after a school shooting, ironically, and I had was just felt God told me to write this letter, dear students, and I grieved with them and sympathized with them, and then said, you know what, there is something you can do. Be nice, go sit with that kid at lunch. When they drop the books
Mm,
or the pencils, don't laugh, just help them pick them up because you're going to do it tomorrow. You're going to be the one
right,
dropping everything tomorrow. And then
right.
I didn't know what to do. So I sat on it for a year and then did a 21-day kindness challenge with kids in mind, going, who do they encounter throughout their day? So the
Oh,
first
that's
person,
really interesting. So go a little deeper into that. So what was it, a devotional? Was it a book? What did that look like?
it was a Facebook, and I did videos every day for 21 days. And I just thought, okay, what do kids see as they go through the day? First thing, they see you, they see your mom, the parents, the siblings. So each day was to be kind to the parents, the siblings. Then it was to be kind
Mhm.
to the carpool driver or the bus driver. Or then the next day it would be like, then you have to be kind to the principal, the teacher, the cafeteria worker. And you just did 21 days of that. And I gave to them.
Small things to be kind with, it sounds
Yes.
like.
Yes. And then it went to well, then we had COVID, so it went nowhere. And we all ended up on,
Yeah,
how we
yeah,
all ended up on social media. And I started to
yeah.
read posts, and parents were not good. They were some of the stuff was out and out cruel.
I
And you
bet.
knew that 15-year-old is reading the
They
parents'
were stuck at
post.
home with that 15-year-old. That was the
Yeah, and they're
problem.
stuck and they're reading the post because they don't want you posting about them. But then what you post, well, they're like, oh, if she can do this, he can do this, I can do it. Well, no. Okay,
Okay.
then what happened with COVID, we all sat at home. We all went on social media because we had nothing else to do. And
Yeah.
and what I noticed was how cruel adults were being to each other. It was actually it
So
was
adults
horrific.
were being cruel to other adults.
Yes, yes.
Yes, agree.
And those 15-year-olds are reading your post if for no other
Mhm.
reason they don't want you posting about them. But
Yes, right.
they read it and they're like, well, if she can say that, I can say that to this kid. And no,
Mm.
no. So at that point, I decided to change my focus to parents. We've got to
Oh,
get,
wow. So you actually started off doing this 21-day challenge for kids,
yes,
but then you realized that maybe the kids had learned it from somewhere. And
exactly.
so we should address the root of that. I think that's really smart.
Yes.
So what happened next?
Then I started to, I thought, parents are so busy. I'm like, I don't want to pile a bunch of stuff on their plate that's already overflowing. So I would just come up with simple stuff that you do every day. Like we all go to the grocery
Mm.
store every day. So don't leave the cart in the parking space. So for the other busy parents who have 3 kids in the car and they go to pull into that coveted close spot and there's a cart in the middle of it, that just ruins somebody's day right there.
Yeah.
Then if hold doors open, smile, get off your phones and look up and smile and say
Thank you for saying
hi.
that. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Yes, that simple everyday stuff. And that's where you start. That's where you start.
I love that. So just in, doing what we're supposed to do,
Mhm.
right? Instead of
Right.
putting it off or waiting for someone else to do it. So then what's the next step after we master actually taking the cart back to the little cart caddy thing at HEB? I mean, I'm saying but not saying. So what's our next step? How do we go the
Then,
next mile?
yeah, the next step is just can gradually increase. Then maybe get together with friends, neighbors, the community, and do a sock drive. Number one thing requested at homeless shelters: brand new socks, brand new T-shirts. Get your kids involved. If they're on the soccer team or the chess club, get all those people involved, and have your 15-year-old lead the way for the kids part of it. But that's how
Yeah, I love
you
that.
just gradually keep going until it's as natural as breathing.
I think that's awesome. And I love that you're starting with the parents because I will agree with you. And it's not been just during COVID. I see people on social media all the time saying the ugliest, nastiest things to other adults on other people's posts. My husband and I call it the telephone tough guy, the armchair warrior, right? They say things because there's no consequence for them.
Yes.
Nobody's going to come to their house and beat them up, right?
Right.
But if, like back in the day when we didn't have social media, if somebody said something to you, there was a really good chance they were going to come to your house, you know?
Something
So
right
in
back.
today's society, yeah, we feel like we should just be able to say whatever we want to say because there's no repercussions.
Right. Right. And
Yeah,
yeah, and it's just sad that we've gotten to that point. And the other
it is.
thing that's really common that happens is road rage.
Oh gosh, road rage.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So how is your 15-year-old sitting next to you in the car and someone cuts
Mm,
you off? What's coming out of your mouth? What are your hands doing?
yeah.
And he's sitting there, he or she is sitting there watching everything you do.
It's true. Even at that age, it is monkey see, monkey do.
Yes.
It really is. My son, transparently, my son tells me all the time, Mom, get off your phone while you're driving. I am busy. I'm always what I consider multitasking. And he's always telling me, you don't need to text and drive. That can wait. And, I definitely feel convicted by that. Sometimes it's not enough to make me stop. To his credit, he does not let up until I turn the phone off, which generally will end in an argument between us, if I'm just being honest. But maybe they have more wisdom than we give them credit for, you know?
Yeah, we can only pray that that's true. That
Right.
that's true. But if
So
you
true.
are teaching your child to drive and you start to see some of these behaviors, look in the mirror.
Look in the mirror, right? For sure, for sure. So after you did the 21-day challenge, how was the feedback on that? What were people saying about it?
People were thrilled, but people loved it. And a lot of people did it, and they gave me, this is what we did. This is what I did as a family. This is what my
Ah,
son did or my daughter did. It was great. But the number one complaint people had was road rage. Are you kidding? We have to not do road rage. And I said, number one.
people want a road
Like,
rage,
are
huh?
you kidding me? Come on, practice. And I said, put sticky notes on your horn because I was a great person. I loved my horn. And I just put
Yeah.
stop, pause on your horn to remind yourself, you know, to take that to stop or take that pause.
Yeah, that's so true. I do not have an issue with road rage, but I will blow my horn in a heartbeat. Like if you don't go, I'm blowing my horn, right? That's it. So you're right. And I can honestly, so I have to tell you the funniest story. So I was going to Smoothie King one morning to pick up a breakfast smoothie and I was in a hurry. I had just dropped my kiddo off at school and I was trying to pick up my smoothie and go back home and get some work done. And in the road, there was the cones where you go down from two lanes into one. And so I just sped up and apparently cut this person off in traffic. And it wasn't intentional. It was just the cones came up on me. I apparently was not paying attention. And so I jumped in front of this guy. And of course, he decided to blow his horn. Only he just laid on it. We're driving down the road. It's, the whole way. And I turn into Smoothie King and he turns in behind me. And
Ooh.
I'm like, oh, this is probably not good. Well, in the Smoothie King drive through line, what happens is if you're picking up an order, you go to the first window. And if you're ordering, or you pay for it and then you go to the second window. So as I came up to the first window, the person, he pulled up behind me and he came around to the passenger side window.
Oh, geez.
And so I, of course, locked my doors really quick. The lady at the window, I just cracked the window. He is screaming and cussing, banging on my window, about cutting him off in traffic. And I'm thinking, this is a little excessive. Like, and the lady says to me from the window, do you want me to call the cops?
Hmm.
And I said, I tell you what, I'm going to drive away and I'm going to make a block and I'll come back. And she's like, that'd be great. So I do. I get in my car, I leave him standing there, or I'm in my car, I pull away from the window, I leave him standing there. And fortunately, he did not follow me, but I had this moment of panic because,
Hmm.
first off, we live in Texas, right? And so, and I'm thinking, this could have just gone down so much differently
Yes.
simply from me pulling in front of this guy. Whether I meant to do it or not, totally not important, still bad behavior. And I think to myself, how many times has this guy done this to somebody else? And at what point is he going to get out and bang on the wrong person's window? Like it could be something very dangerous.
It could definitely escalate. I had a situation myself, and I don't know what I did. At least you had a clue.
Right.
I had no idea. And we get in the exit ramp, and he's in front of me, and I'm stopping like a clueless. He gets out of the car and starts coming to my window. And I'm like you
Oh
kind of
no.
panic, and I'm
You
looking
do.
down, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? I had this in the car. So I put on the red clown nose,
Nice. I
through with the
love it.
windshield. I
Love
said,
it.
"Hi." He couldn't have stopped fast enough. He couldn't have stopped fast enough. He got
Okay,
whooped on
everybody
his,
get
and he
red
got back
nose.
in his
Just
car.
kidding.
And I said, and I all I could think of is, I wonder what he told people when he got to his destination about the crazy person with the clown nose.
But what a brilliant move on your part. What a great knee-jerk reaction. So when you saw him get out, did you have like the whole adrenaline
Oh
response?
yeah,
Like, oh my
I was,
God,
I was, I was panicking because I didn't. I said, "What's he going to do? Is he going to come through? Like you? Is he going to be banging on the What's going to happen?"
yeah.
And I had just gotten these. Wasn't sure what they were for. Now I know, and I use
Now
this
you know.
throughout. I use this often in my.
Self-protection device. There you go. Wow, that's so crazy. It's funny how people allow their tempers just to rule what they are going to do, not thinking of the consequence. And even if we're not just talking about road rage, even if we're talking about things we say on social media about somebody, you never know what a person is going through.
Exactly.
And to say something, whether you think there's going to be repercussions or not, the way it can devastate somebody, it's just horrible to think about the things that we've done unwittingly, you know?
Well, and I always say, personal pain, it's as unique as a fingerprint. You don't know
Right?
what somebody's going through. So just always, always be kind.
Yeah.
Suicide rates are up, depression rates are up, anxiety rates are up. Think before, take that pause before you type something that could really hurt somebody.
So true. And it's so easy just to opt out, just to not
Yeah,
do it,
you don't have to.
Um, when our kids were smaller, I mean, they still play Xbox, but when our kids were smaller, they would get online and play with other people. And,
Mhm.
we kept a pretty tight rein on that. But every now and then, you would hear an older kid say something, and especially, our kid was 15. So when he was around 12 or 13, the popular thing to do, as horrible as it sounds, but the popular thing to do was to say to somebody, you know what, why don't you just kill yourself? And I remember passing by his door and hearing somebody say that over the Xbox speaker. And I was like, no. And so I told him, turn it off. You're done. There is no more playing online. But there have been times where kids have said something to him when he was younger, like that. And he would end up just boohooing his eyes out. And I would tell him, baby, you don't even know these people. Like,
Mhm.
what does it matter? Yeah, but mom, why would they say that to me? And I'm thinking, in our adult mind, we can rationalize it out, but in their child minds, it feels so much to them. It feels so heavy and so big.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's, it's funny you should say that because I did know a mom approached me because someone in the school, another kid in his school to his face said those exact words. You should
Yeah.
just kill yourself.
Yeah.
And the kid, oh, yeah, we've been trying to work and he's getting professional help. It had gotten that bad. But I thought,
Wow.
where does anybody get, where do the kids get the idea to even say such a thing?
Yeah, it's funny. I think we tend to blame parents, and listen, I have encountered some bad parents for sure, but I think too the culture, it has become the norm to not choose kindness. I hate to say that, but it's truth. I mean, people are so reactive, whereas when we were growing up as kids, I don't ever remember anybody saying anything like that
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Yet I hear it from the moms I work with. I hear it from my own child about, things that people have said to him. I don't know. I feel like it's so much more prevalent now. Do you think that's true?
I absolutely think it's true. And that's why I did write the book, Raising Kind Children, to just remind parents you have to intentionally teach
Mm,
kindness. And
yeah.
just do the simple day-to-day things, and your kid is going to mirror that. Be the
Yeah, I love that. It's totally true. So did you write the book as sort of an extenuation of the 21-day challenge?
the book that it started there. It was more like, and then I have
Mhm.
done tons of research since then. And I had all these notes, and people are like constantly write it down, write it down. I'm like, okay, fine. Because sitting down, the art of sitting and just writing something, even with all the notes and the
Yeah.
research, yeah, it just doesn't come naturally. So that's
Yeah.
how the book came about, is just, doing podcasts like with you and talking to people and talking to parents. They're like, write it down. So when I did write it down, I wanted to make sure it was short and sweet and easy for parents to use.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, as you were sort of writing these things down and you were coming up with your own ideas, in the book, is it categorized by age group or by situation or anything like that?
No, it's categorized by the simple process, how to start out, how to graduate to the community, and then you graduate to those how to be kind in those awkward, sticky situations, which is
Tell me about that.
yeah,
Give
that
us an
is
example of an awkward, sticky situation.
how about that road rage? And I did humor was one of them. That was one
Yeah,
because
that's a great
it,
idea.
well, and the other great idea with humor is if you are one of those people that can rattle off one-liners, which I can't. That's why I have a red clown nose.
The nose? Yeah.
Use it. How many times have you walked into a room and people are just going at it and you're like, huh? And if you
Mhm.
just say something off the wall, something funny, it stops. Everybody
It
stops.
sort of breaks that cycle. Yeah.
Yes. And then the
Yeah.
other real one of them which is what I was working with that child I was talking about, is to use compliments. And somebody goes, well,
That's a great idea.
you've got, your hair looks great. I love those shoes. That report you wrote was fabulous. And they said, well, isn't that lying? I said, find something that you can say about them that is a compliment. You have to
Yeah.
look a little bit deeper. And it's not easy. That you have to practice this. Um, but you don't necessarily have to lie. So did they do a great report? Did they play good at the game on Friday? Yeah. Well, then use that. Use those. Find
Yeah.
some.
Use what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you say that you have to practice at it because sometimes we didn't come from good backgrounds, right?
Mhm.
I
Right.
grew up in
Right.
a family where my mother and father had nothing good to say about anyone. And so it is amazing to me that I grew up such a happy person because I honestly, it came from not ever wanting to be that person that all I could do was talk about other people. So I love that you say that you have to practice it, because for
Mhm.
some of us, it just isn't going to come normally. We are going to have to be very intentional about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the other thing I always I have said this in the past in those awkward situations. Have you ever been in a situation where you get roped into an argument and you don't even know how it happened? It happened.
Every moment of my life.
Yeah.
I
Well,
have children every day.
well, let me give you words of wisdom. W.C. Fields said, just because you're invited to that argument doesn't mean you have to attend.
This is truth. I like this. Just because you get invited don't mean you got to go to the party. So, what would you say to, to the adult that maybe they're like, okay, I get it, Teresa, like I need to be nicer, but people just make me mad. What would you say to them?
I would say, you need to practice the pause, take a deep breath. And again, that's practicing intentionality. And if you're doing all the little things, it becomes easier. But keep in mind that there is science behind all this. There have been studies that show if you and I exchange an act of kindness, your serotonin levels go up. Well, so do mine. And serotonin are our happy hormones. And from one act of kindness, you and I are pretty happy people. But what I find fascinating anyway is that anybody that observes that act of kindness that are in the room, their serotonin levels also go up.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so you've got one act of kindness and you've got a whole room full of happy people and you're creating those ripples of kindness in your corner of the world. And it's easy stuff. It's easy stuff. It just takes practice.
I love that you said that ripple effect. I always say that we do ministry everywhere we go. You don't have to be a preacher, you don't have to lead a women's group. You do ministry everywhere you go. And sometimes that just looks like smiling at the woman that has the two crazy kids that she's trying to wrangle in the grocery store. Just that moment of smile means a lot to her.
Yeah.
So,
And you brought that up at the grocery store. There was a time I came around the produce section, and the woman had the screaming toddler in her cart, and she was trying to get the produce bag open. And you could just see the look on her face was, I have to get two things and then I can go home. I can get out of here. And here a gentleman came over, took the bag, opened it, handed it back. The child stopped screaming. The relief, the weight of the world has been lifted off her shoulders, all because somebody opened a produce bag for her.
gosh, it's so true. Sometimes the smallest things,
Mhm.
lead us to that moment of like, oh, could have done that. But let's get a little bit deeper into like what happens you know, when you aren't raising kind children, right? So I do a lot of prison ministry. And so a lot of the things that I hear are women's childhood and the way that they grew up. And then they find that the way that they grew up, they begin to then, whether they like it or not, act like their parents, right? And
Mhm.
they begin to proliferate these cycles. And one of the things that is like a cycle that I see all the time that people don't even realize is a cycle is literally just speaking negativity all the time over everything. And of course, I shared, that's how I grew up. My parents were extremely negative about other people. But as parents, sometimes our parents were very negative about us.
Mhm.
And so we then begin to kind of pass that down to our kids. So for the people that are listening, that maybe they are that kid where their parents just or their mom and their dad just really had nothing good to say about them, how do they kind of reset their mind and begin to learn to be kind again instead of feeling like they constantly have to protect their heart?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And sadly, that's a very real part of our society. And I think it comes down to you have to fill your own kindness tank up before you can be kind to. If your kindness tank is empty, there's nothing to give to anybody else. So,
Yeah,
it's taking that 15 minutes in the morning, especially as a single mom, you need that 15 minutes before chaos starts, before the chaos wakes up.
for
and,
sure.
and just to start your day, get your mind in the mindset. you know, or at the end of the day, after the kids are in bed, you take the hot bubble bath. Whatever works for you. I'm just throwing out ideas, but if you have something else that fills up your kindness tank, by all means, that's what you need to do. Those are just taking time for you. I know one woman just told me, she goes, I had the best day. And I said, oh, you did? She goes, I got to take an hour nap in the middle of the day. And
That's
and I
the
was like,
best.
oh my gosh. And Johnny's like, really? Even I don't get to do that. But you go. But she said it made all the difference. She said she had the time and took advantage of it. And then that goes back to being
Yeah.
intentional. Even if you have to write down the night before, start journaling what you want to, how you want your day to go, how you want things to start, and start journaling that the day before, the night before. Those are all
Yeah, that's
things that
great
help
advice.
reset your mind and fill up your kindness tank.
It's true. If I always say you cannot pour out from an empty cup. And it's true. When you have, you always start off better in the morning than you end up at the end of the day, especially when you're a mom and you've got to wrangle the three kids into the car and none of them want to go wherever it is you're going and they're screaming and they're mad and they're crying. And then, God forbid, you have to actually go to the grocery store with those three. The grocery store is not a happy place anyway. So when you get there and you have three screaming kids, by the time you get home, you're so frazzled, there's nothing left. There's literally nothing
Yeah.
left. You're tired, you've been working all day. So it's true in those types of situations, when there is nothing in the tank, what can they do to not just spin out?
Yeah. When what with the grocery thing, because I was there with my two little
The
ones,
thing, yeah,
I gave them jobs. Like one kid pushed the cart, and then we get in an aisle, and I say, "Okay, we need this. You got to find it." That gave them something else to focus on. By the other than the fact was, I don't want to be here. So
yeah,
that's just a tip. Um, but yeah, back to the moms, they really need, I think the best suggestion I can give them is to sit down at night and write out what you want tomorrow to look like. What intentional acts of kindness do you want to perform yourself? What do you want to show your kids? What example do you want to be for your kids?
yeah. I think that's really good. And I think it's important to model for your children, what a servant's heart looks like. And to have, even when they are young, to have a conversation with them about the fact that Jesus was a servant
Yes.
and he had a servant's heart. It's why he washed people's feet and he fed them and that type of thing. When our kids were little, one of the things they used to absolutely love to go to the food bank and bag up groceries. They loved it from the time they were little bitty during the summer. They would beg to go every week. Not because they necessarily had a servant's heart at that point, right? But
Mhm.
because it was so much fun to do something. And then later on, our kids have told us that that was one of the greatest things that they did. They enjoyed helping people even before they really understood what it meant to help
Right.
people. They just knew they were helping people, right? And
Right.
so that kind of stuck in their heart. And so we hope that they will then pass that down to their kids as well.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because my kids did the backpacks for that went for the weekend to the kids that didn't have, without it. So they would go, and I would take them down, and actually did it as a group, and we did that a few times as well. And we packed the backpacks so these kids have something to eat over the weekend.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. We have always been the type of family that honestly, any of our kids' friends, we treated them like our kids. If we were going out to eat, they were all going too. And it's interesting what an impact things will make when you don't even realize you don't make a conscious decision to be kind. It flows out of who you are, right?
Right.
So if you are kind, kindness flows out. And I think for some people, men and women, obviously, sometimes kindness isn't their first go to, but it is the biggest impactor of people. You can never, we used to always say that, what you do for a person that makes them feel good, like that's what they remember. That's how they remember you. That's your calling card, that's your stamp.
how you make them feel is what they remember, not necessarily what you
That's what they
say,
remember.
but how did you make them feel?
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely.
How'd you make them feel? Yeah. So we've always tried to kind of proliferate this in our kids. I won't lie, it is harder when they start to get older
Mhm.
because they just, when they're little, everything is exciting, everything is new. When they turn into a teenager, they don't want to do anything that you say. Everything, it feels like it's just harder and harder to get them to engage. Do you have any advice for mamas that have these teenage kids and maybe they didn't start early enough, right?
Right.
Maybe they're like, you know what? Okay, Teresa's right. We got to raise better kids. How can they get them interested in being kind?
And again, I think it goes back to how are you modeling kindness yourself and get them involved, especially like this time of year. It's a great time of year. Food banks need
Yeah.
help. Okay, we're going to donate to the food bank. Let's all go to the grocery store and you're going to pick out what we're going to donate.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, coat drives are a huge thing. Get with the soccer
Mhm.
team or the chess club and tell everybody we're going to collect coats and we want them, you are going to help us collect those on X date.
Yeah, I
Just,
like that. I
yeah,
like
just
that.
giving
Especially if it's
them,
something that they feel like they have ownership of.
yeah, they have just, like you said, they have ownership that they can really say, oh, and then when you deliver it, they come to. A lot of people say, well, okay, we'll do this and then I'll deliver it. Don't worry about it. No, no, take
Yeah.
your kids with you.
Yeah, that's true. As parents, we do because it is more work, right? When we
It
involve them.
is.
But you're totally right. It pays off. And let's be honest, I mean, as we're raising kids, that's kind of our job, right? To
Right.
turn them into good humans, not just to feed them and clothe them and then, count the days till they leave. So it is our job. One of the coolest things that I ever got to witness in one of my children, I have a child who's now 29 years old. And when he was very young, so I think he wasn't in high school yet. I want to say he was in eighth grade. Maybe he was in high school now that I think about it. But when he was very young, sometime between the ages of 14 and 16, so we're from Louisiana and we went to a church in Baton Rouge. And every month they would throw this huge block party for all the people that lived in the neighborhood. And it was an underprivileged neighborhood. So they would give out food and they would give out clothes. We would always have music. We would serve a meal, that kind of thing. And so my son had made some bad decisions at school and had gotten into some trouble. And the pastor there did this really cool thing. What he did was he put my son in charge of the block party, like literally in charge of the whole thing. And so, whatever my son, said, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he basically put together the whole thing with a team. And to watch him, step into that kind of leadership and
Hmm.
build this team, I was giggling because obviously I was at the block party and at one point I said, hey, 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 come here, come here, come here. And he's like, Mom, I can't, I'm busy. And he had this whole headset on, a little talkie on there, And I thought, that's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I thought about it a lot. I think when you instill those kinds of values in your children when they're young, even though they can be a little bit of a pain, in the teenage years for sure, sometimes a whole lot of a pain in the teenage years, they step into whatever you have put in their hands,
Hmm.
you know? And so if you've put kindness in their hands, I feel like they really rise to that challenge.
Yeah, they do. I actually also had a nephew who it would have been junior high. And there was a kid with a wheelchair and he could not push his wheelchair and carry the tray at the cafeteria. So he went up and helped him carry the tray and said, come sit with us. Well, nephew is
Mm.
part of the athletes. They're all into different sports. And the kid in the wheelchair knew every sports statistic known to man. They just thought he was the greatest.
Wow.
And he played basketball in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And so had they not reached out to this kid, they would have missed out on such an amazing friendship that they developed with this kid. And I thought,
Yeah, and probably made the kid feel super cool too, right?
yeah, yeah, and his mom wasn't there to tell him go carry that tray. He was, just out with all the other kids at lunch. So they he
That's how you know when you've done the right thing, when they will do the right thing when you're not there to tell them to do it.
exactly. Exactly.
I love it when other parents we always laugh about it. You know, when you send your kid to somebody else's house to spend the night and then you go pick them up, and I'm like, I hope he was good. And she's like, oh no, he was fantastic. He helped us clean up the yard. And I'm like, he does not do that at our house. know? But
Are you
you
sure it
love
was
it when
my
they
kid?
go somewhere. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, my kid did that? Are you sure this one? But it's so nice when you see the fruit that you've planted, right? You
Yeah,
actually get to see the fruit.
it is. It's amazing. I didn't know we had another kid. I think he was about 19, but he was walking and it was pouring down rain, and some poor woman had a flat tire. Well, you try to get the auto club on a rainy day, they're not coming for hours. And so she's just waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
And he knocks on her window and said, I can change this. And are you sure? And he changed the tire. And she said, well, let me give you a ride. He goes, no, I'm fine. And he walks off and she drives off in minutes rather than hours. But he, somewhere along the line, was taught how to be a kind kid. And again, being kind when no one was standing over your shoulder telling you what to do.
Yes, it's so true. It's so nice when you actually get to hear about it or witness that,
Yes.
It's funny. It just occurred to me, we keep talking about boys, and I think there is like sort of this mindset like, you got to teach boys to be kind. But you and I both know because we're girls, there's some ugly little girls out there.
Oh, yes.
There's some mean women out there. That's the truth.
That is the
Um,
truth.
I mean, and I find that women can be a lot more vicious than men any day of the week.
I totally agree, especially
Yeah,
on
yeah,
social media. They're real good with their words.
especially on social media. Yeah. So when you encounter someone on social media that is kind of doing the whole putting people on blast, and maybe it's a friend of yours or that kind of thing, do you engage or do you choose to not engage? How would somebody want to handle that?
I will say that, I will get on because I've done it and said, I don't think it's necessary to go down that road. And
Yeah.
actually, I was even in a store, a dollar store, one of those Dollar Tree stores everybody loves. And
Yeah.
this woman was using some very colorful language, very loudly. She was just, the customers were awful, her employees were awful. Now she was using
Oh,
much
wow.
stronger language. And I looked at one of the employees. I said, who is that? And she goes, oh, that's our manager.
Oh, great.
I flipped around because I was just appalled. And I said, there are children in this store and your language is not appreciated. Well, she picked her mouth up off the floor because she couldn't believe somebody
Right.
said it. And the employers are like, oh. She said, I
Yeah.
think I need it. I think it's time for me to go home. And I'm like, oh, is it ever? It's like, yeah, you just,
Yes, you've said all you needed to say.
yeah. So you do have to, if you see something like that, you can stop it. Now, stop it and let it go because you don't want to escalate it into a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we always tell, our kiddo on social media, you can elect to not participate.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, especially kids, well, adults too. I mean, I deal with it with adults too. They feel the need to protect the person, which is great. That's
Yeah.
valiant, but sometimes to your own detriment. And so, we always I even tell the women that I talk with, you don't have to say anything. You can elect to not participate.
Right. Right.
Um, Chances are these two people that are going back and forth, they don't actually even know each other. So they're both adults. They both could just act right,
Right.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
think it's hard. I think it's hard when, because social media is always, from now until, I don't know, they come up with something else, it's always going to play a part in our life.
Hmm.
And, we've heard all the statistics about cyberbullying and that kind of thing, even to the point of murder. Several years ago, remember there was the girl that the cheerleader, they got into a fight and, the whole thing. So, I mean, social media is like this big platform for people to just say whatever they want to say, no repercussions whatsoever. So when people see other adults, we're speaking specifically of adults, engage in that type of thing, should they say something or should they just elect to not participate?
It depends on the situation. I mean, I really did take a chance by saying something in the dollar store, because anybody could have come at me from
Yeah.
that point, but I truly felt called to say something at that point. Online, you really just need to gauge on what is going on. I have gotten on and just I've never had anybody come back at me, and I've never had that happen. It does happen
Mhm.
though, and I just say, "It's not this is not necessary. Shut it down." And I have reported to the administrators of different sites,
Yeah.
and a lot of times that works the best because the administrator shuts it down real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, they have a vested interest, right, to
Yes.
protect their group, for sure, for sure. So, what about within a family? A mom, a dad, some kids, right? Within a family, how could how could each member of the family kind of give kindness to another member of the family?
This is a fun one. I love sticky notes. I don't know anybody else who uses them constantly, but,
If you could see my desk right now, you would die laughing. I
I was
probably
gonna
have
say,
20 of
these are my
them.
new
Yeah.
favorites. The little yellow ones. Um,
I like those. I've not seen the stars. Those are
yeah,
cute.
I thought, that's why I said these are my new favorites.
I do. I like those. Yeah.
And anyway, put on the bathroom mirrors, put on there, hey, you're awesome. You're important. If your child has that math test they've studied all week for and they're stressing out about
Mm,
it, in their backpack, stick, you've got this. Let them
yeah.
know. And same thing with your spouse. Put put the note, you're important to me. You are the light in my life, and put it by their coffee mug before they even leave the house.
Yes.
Siblings, just the same thing. Siblings can do that to each other. I know it's a little harder. They'd rather just wrestle around on the floor if they're bored.
Yes. Or scream at each other if they're girls.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that, pull hair, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
yes, and I know somebody had said to me, yeah, they go to the same I think they're in the same high school, and she's the older sister and found out something her younger sister was having a bad day, so she went and gave her a
Mm.
piece of candy. And that
Aw.
brightened her younger sister's day up. Again, the simple little stuff. And as parents, you have to check in with each other, make sure you're on the same page. Basic parenting relationship. Uh,
Yeah. It's funny. I just realized that the whole time we've been talking, every act of kindness that we've talked about has been something small.
mhm.
Just proof that the things that stick in your mind do not have to be these big, lavish
No,
gestures.
no.
My husband does this thing for me. It probably wouldn't mean anything to anybody else, but for me, I love coffee. It is my love language. In fact, you're not allowed to speak to me in the morning until I've had at least one cup of coffee, just for everybody's safety, just for your safety, my safety, all the things, and helps me like clear the fog. And so for Christmas one year, he bought me this really awesome. It is not a coffee pot. I would not even dare call that. It looks like a spaceship, but this coffee machine of greatness. And then several years later, I discovered I like coffee foam. I like milk foam on my coffee. So the problem is the foamer is a separate unit and you've got to like put the milk in it, it foams it, it's all deliciousness in your cup, but it's got this little spring on the inside. So you have to take it apart every time you use it and clean it. It's a big pain. And I hate to clean it. And so a lot of times I'll have coffee in the afternoon and I just leave it. And then the next morning I get up and there's just crud all in there, right? Nasty milk and all the things. Well, my husband heard me griping about it one morning, not like it was my own fault, right? And now in the mornings, he gets up before me and I will go to the coffee pot and he will have cleaned my little milk frother. And oftentimes he'll leave me a little note. And I will tell you that that is something that It is such a tiny act of kindness,
Hmm.
but it starts my day off in a completely different way because there's not a woman on the face of the earth that wants to get up and wash dishes of any kind first thing in the morning, you know? So for him to just take time just to clean that frother out just means the world to me. And I notice when he doesn't do it. In fact, that's how I know he's upset with me in the morning, right? But I just love that kindness is truly just a small gesture, just a
Hmm.
so I'm curious, what's one of the things that sticks out in your head, just an act of kindness that someone's done for you that you remember really well?
Well, you'll laugh. It's that I was in line at the coffee shop and someone bought, I always buy coffee. And when I went to pay to buy other coffee, oh, yours is taken care of. It totally threw me off. Someone had bought my coffee
I
and
love that.
it was hilarious. I'm like, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't they buy me a coffee? But I was totally thrown off. Didn't buy anybody else's coffee, but I was so excited that somebody thought I was important enough to buy my coffee.
That's what it really is, isn't it? Yeah, it's somebody saying you're important enough. I see you, you
Yes,
know?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's it's funny, it just takes the smallest things, a smile, a kind word, it does not have to be these huge grandiose gestures.
No.
Now listen, we're women.
Yeah,
We'll take the big stuff too,
well,
but
that's right.
it's the little stuff, it seems to really, like, take root in our heart and stay there, I
It's
love that.
the little stuff creates starts the ripples. And
It
if we're
does.
all doing just a little ripple in our corner of the world, think about it. If we're all doing it, those ripples are going to eventually merge together and create a wave of kindness that goes across this country. And
Yes.
that's
Yes, it's
what's needed.
true.
That is so needed. That's how we change the world, just one ripple of kindness at a time. And
I love that.
it's
I
simple.
love that. It's so true. It's simple, and
It's
you're right. It's the little bitty dots. It's funny. I was just thinking about a piece of art that I saw at a museum one time, created by something called pointillism, and it's an entire picture, and it's made with just these little bitty tiny dots, just little pinpoint dots.
mhm.
But if you stand back, you can't even see the dots. You just see the
It's
picture. And
mhm.
it would be great to think about kindness like that, that we're
Oh,
creating
I
the
like
picture
that
of the
idea.
world we want to live in. Yeah, but each of us create just that one little dot, one little dot, one little dot, one little dot. Everybody complains about the state of the world. Well, I mean, we got to do something about it, right? And it
Right?
takes everybody doing their part.
Yes, absolutely.
So I love that. Teresa, talk about your book a little bit. I'm
No,
dying to know more about this book. She
that,
said, hold on, I got one
I
right
just
here.
happen to have a copy handy.
I just happen to have a copy. I love the cover.
Thank you. And then I did, it's award winning. I got an award for it. So that's exciting.
Come on, that is exciting.
So
That's
yeah, it's
awesome.
raising kind children. Again,
Raising
it's
kind
just, it's
children.
a quick read. It's a process that starts out simple and gets into the bigger awkward sticky situations that people can actually put into practice their
Yeah.
acts of kindness.
Teresa, I feel like you should do another 21-day challenge.
I keep hearing that too. uh, that'll
Yes.
be maybe my 2025 out the gate.
I like that. Oh, that would be great. Maybe you could do the whole month of January.
Yes, I'm thinking.
30 days of kindness.
Yep.
There you go. I like that.
No.
I love that
And
idea.
I do want to say I am going to give you a link to share with your viewers that
Please.
gives you, it's a freebie, and it's a 75 acts of kindness. And you can do it. So if you don't have any clue where to start, this gives you 75 ideas where to start.
You know what? I think that's going to be very helpful because I know a lot of people do want to start, but they're not really sure how to start.
Yeah.
It's like that with everything we do, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, we will absolutely post that link here with our video. Do you want to say it out loud so that's on the video?
It's 75 acts of kindness checklist. And I'm sorry, I don't know what the link is by heart.
Ah, that's okay. Sometimes the link has all this weird,
Yeah.
dot, blah, 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 blah. So it's totally cool. We will link it to the video. We'll link that to the video so that everyone can do the 75 acts of kindness. I love that. And you guys, as you are listening to this podcast, if you think Teresa should start January 2025 out with a bang and do this month of acts of kindness, I would love that. In fact, Teresa, I will challenge you and I will challenge my listeners. Maybe we need to make this a thing. Maybe it needs to be 30 days of kindness,
Okay.
where you speak to us and then we post the acts of kindness that we've done.
Okay. We're
I love it. She's
and now
like, I
now
just
that
got
you got me, I'm
voluntold.
gonna
I just
work
got a
on
whole nother job.
it. I
It's
love a
so
challenge.
important. It's just so important. It's one of those things that I don't feel like it's talked about enough. And I work with groups of women that truly, it's the wildest thing. It's for me to hug them, for me to just rub their back as I'm talking to them. It undoes them. It makes them cry because they have lived in environments where there just is no kindness. There's only survival. Today we've been talking about our families and our
Mhm.
kids, but man, I work in the jails where these women, I mean, they can't show kindness because they don't know what it looks like, some of them.
Yeah.
And so to be able to just love on them a little bit, just be kind to them, it's amazing to me how they will then take that and become kind to someone else, and it just does, it changes the world.
Yes, it does. And you mentioned hugs. It's important for them and it's important for your family because hugs, again, studies, you need 4 hugs a day just to
Yep.
survive.
That's what's been wrong with me then. I need more
You
hugs.
need more hugs. Yes. Yes. 8 just to maintain and 12 or more to thrive. So yeah, hugs
Do
are
dog
very
hugs
important.
count?
I'm sorry.
What about if do dog hugs count?
Yes, they do. Dog and cat
They
hugs.
count, right? Okay. Good, good. That's right. Dog and cat hugs are the best. It's true. I have had moments in my life where, in fact, it happened to me this morning. I was on a phone call. You know how sometimes you meet someone and you just know instantly that they're just like you, right? And I woke up, sometimes we wake up as women, we have a lot on our plate, we feel a little bit discouraged. And just her simply saying, I just want you to know I see you. And it came out of the blue, and I had to like choke back tears because just that word of kindness, I see you. I know you're there. It was so profound to me this morning that it just made me feel great for the rest of my day,
Yeah, I
you know?
get, you're getting confirmation that yes, somebody saw me today. Yeah,
Yeah, somebody saw me today. And for women, I think that's a big deal
I,
for
I, I
us.
agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so let me just say the name of the book again so that everybody can find it. So it is Raising Kind Children by Teresa Ramirez. And Teresa, they can find that on Amazon.
Yes, they can.
Okay. It's award winning. So, see, you got to go get it. You got to go get it. And then we will also, if you'll look down in the links, we will link to this video and this podcast so that you can get Teresa's checklist of 75 acts of kindness. I love that. If you don't know where to start, this is a great place.
Mhm.
And if maybe you read a couple of them and you're like, I'm not quite that kind yet, that's okay. Go to the next three.
That's right.
Just choose one. And think about if they would just do one a day, Teresa, right? Just
Mhm.
one a day.
Yes.
It would start. What's the rule? If you do something, what, 30 times? Is
Uh,
that the deal? It becomes a
21.
habit.
21.
21 times becomes a habit. So see, we can make some habits and change the world around us just with
Yes.
small random acts of kindness. I love that. I love that. Well, Teresa, thank you so much for being part of our podcast. Clearly, you are making a beautiful impact in the kingdom. The Lord loves it when we're kind to people.
Mhm.
He loves it when we're kind to ourselves too.
Yes.
And the Bible talks about how we are to train up our children in the way they should go. And so, mamas, if you are listening and maybe you've not really given much thought to this, maybe you've not been terribly intentional, it's never too late to start. Even if you got one of them 15-year-olds, believe me, if you find the right way for them to become kind, they will. Maybe it's not hugging somebody, maybe it's not putting up the shopping cart because that just takes too much work. But maybe, truly, maybe it's starting off just telling their sister, that they're not going to punch her in the face, or, all the crazy things that kids say. The truth is, it's never too late. If you're an adult and maybe you've not had a lot of kindness shown to you, you can change not only your life, but the world too by just being kind to someone else, right?
Right.
Right. It's a good start. So, Teresa, thank you again. Go get her book, Raising Kind Children.
Thank you.
Raising Kind Children.
Thank you for having me.
So, absolutely. My delight. My pleasure.